New Zealand, a beautiful collection of islands that have no God. But while I've renounced my Catholicism for a life of sin, the government is still giving tax breaks to religious groups. And it's not just your little neighbourhood chapel getting a free ride. It's charitable businesses like Sanitarium, that iconic wheat pusher owned by the Seventh-day Adventists who rake in hundreds of millions in revenue and don't pay a cent in income tax. Aren't we a secular society? Why am I not directly benefiting from this tax law? And can I still eat cornflakes if I've been baptised but I didn't really mean it?
I don't understand how is the food associated with the church, though?
Apparently, because they're promoting some of their religious values, which include, like, proliferation of good, healthy eating, etc., etc.
And cornflakes are meant to make you not masturbate, right?
Sorry, say that again?
Here's the tea. John Harvey Kellogg, born 1852, invented cornflakes in the hope that plain food would stop people masturbating. Mr. Kellogg, the man who created cornflakes, produced the cereal in the late 19th century and marketed it as healthy, ready-to-eat, anti-masturbatory morning meal.
I still feel horny. Okay, so what does it mean to say that churches are tax exempt in New Zealand?
Okay, well, what it is if you are a registered charity, then you're exempt from tax. And one of the ways that you can be a charity is to advance religion.
Yeah.
And so the heads of charity that we've got, what is it? Advancing religion, education, relieving poverty, and like other good things.
Yeah.
Comes from the sort of Elizabethan ages.
Right.
And in many ways it makes sense for its time because there wasn't a welfare state. And so the churches looked after the poor and such like.
It is completely batty for it to be on the same level as lifting people out of poverty,
Yeah.
educating people.
Yeah.
But I guess in the context of when they were building this act, right, that would have been
here we
because...
go.
Well, that would, I mean, just the society is probably more religious in general. If you're Christian,
Yeah,
you're
but
like...
why not just update the law? Is your feeling that law is still relevant today?
Very much so.
Right, how so?
Churches do a lot of work that the government just can't do. A lot of the social services that happen in our nation are done through religious organisations, all sorts of things from education, hospitals, rest homes, a whole range of things that the government's not having to pay for because churches or other charities are doing it.
In the Act where it says for the advancement of religion, does that pertain to all faiths, all religions?
All faiths, all religions, yep.
Yeah.
Churches make up about a third of charities in New Zealand, so are a major player.
A third of charities in New Zealand are for the advancement of religion?
Churches, yeah. I think people get probably hung up on the advancement of religion part of it and think that
you were seeing into my mind
and
right
think
now.
think this is about providing opportunities for churches to spread their good news and convert. That's not how we see it at all. We think a natural aspect of the Christian faith is the outworking of those social things. I mean, it's the church in action and doing that sort of thing, what God calls us to do.
You were religious for quite a while, eh?
Yeah, until I was like a teenager. I never financially contributed to a church, I guess.
My parents used to give money to the church all the time. When they were super religious, they used to give 25% of their income to the church.
That's huge.
Yeah, it was massive to them because they had no money, really.
Yeah.
Do you feel like being religious made it easier for you to personally evade tax?
No.
I think there's a bit of a misnomer too around, churches don't pay tax because we do pay GST, PAYE, or superannuation, and those sorts of things.
Yeah, I love all
we
that
don't
stuff.
pay income tax, but we're not earning an income because all of our income that we have at church is donations.
So if we removed this from the legislation, practically it would have no effect on churches?
On a church, it wouldn't have an impact on the income tax side of it, but obviously charitable businesses, it would. And so I think you need to differentiate between a charitable business and a church. So a church is not a charitable... We're a charitable organisation, we're not a business.
Can you explain that a little bit as well?
sorry.
Just for the...
Okay.
I mean,
So
I know, of course, the ins and outs exactly
that's right.
of what
It's
you're
just
talking
for
about.
your listeners and watchers. Yes, okay.
exactly.
Well, if you are a business owned by a charity, you are also tax exempt.
If you're a business owned by a charity, you're also tax exempt.
Yeah, and what the tax working group did look at, because there's the whole what about Sanitarium not paying tax thing, in order to kind of really level the playing field, because there's a concern that Sanitarium is competing with someone else who's tax paying. It's fine you're not paying tax, but we really want to see that that money is going to the charity.
I'm just trying to get my head all around that.
So the way it works is basically an ordinary company like Kellogg's pays income tax to the government, despite the fact that they're doing God's work by stopping people wanking. But a charitable business like Sanitarium, instead of paying income tax, puts that amount of money towards their own charitable purpose.
What it does mean is that the charity, because it doesn't pay tax, its capital can grow faster.
Surely that then gives them a competitive edge on the market.
That is my view. I see a competitive advantage. We did get some advice from the economists that said, no, that was okay, but I didn't understand it.
Who are these economists hired by Sanitarium?
No!
So we reached out to Sanitarium to see if they wanted to do an interview, and they responded with a really nice email saying congrats on all the people we had lined up for this episode, but that for now they don't really need to add any further commentary because all the information is available on this website link. Here I am outside of one of New Zealand's biggest and most beautiful churches. Known for their architecture, churches are. They're one of the largest businesses in New Zealand. And they're not paying the same tax as other companies. I reckon a priest would be someone who would understand that that's messed up. So I'm going to go in there and see if they've got one. Oh, fuck, I can actually cross. Doesn't have chapel on the sign. All right, cool. Thank you. Okay, so they don't have a chapel there. They do have a chaplain, but she's in Vanuatu doing charity work. So, I don't know if this is the big scoop we wanted. What are your thoughts on Sanitarium?
Sanitarium make great breakfast cereals.
So Sanitarium are all good.
You know, do they have a competitive advantage? I would say there's no evidence to back that, because at the end of the day, their funds have got to go back to their charitable purposes. And there's a lot of pressure on them to make sure that's what's happening with their profits, that they're being put back into whatever it is that their charity is set up.
The advancement of religion.
Advancement of religion or whatever it may be.
Do you think that we have a separation of church and state in New Zealand?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So then isn't this law just like wildly inconsistent with that?
You could argue that, yeah.
Is it your position that religion should be removed from the legislation as a tax expert? If we got rid of the advancing religion purpose, then couldn't a whole lot of churches who were doing other work still claim charitable status by the nature of that work?
I mean, I have a lot of sympathy for that view. I mean,
that feels like a nice way to tell me to fuck off.
No, it's actually me saying I strongly agree with you, but I'm not saying so.
I understand that charities shouldn't be paying tax because they're doing good things, right? Let's say we both agree on that. And if we got rid of the idea that you can be classified as a charity by the advancement of religion, then no charitable organisation would be affected by that. I guess that's end of sentence. Do you know what I mean? Like, why is the advancement of religion still in there if all of the charitable church entities are doing other charitable purposes that aren't about spreading the word of God or the book of good stuff?
Yep.
We could still strike the religion and then a church could be getting, you know, tax exemption for a creche, a thing.
Yes,
a thing.
true.
They just couldn't get money back every time they, you know, printed a flyer for God.
I love those flyers, actually. God. Picture of a cross.
Yeah.
Try it.
If there was a recommendation from like the tax working group that we get rid of religion from the Charities Act, would that be something you would be prepared to go with?
No, we would definitely fight it. I think it's been a stable thing in our society for hundreds of years.
But there are so many things that have been stable in our society for long times, though, that we were like, oh, that doesn't feel right after a while.
If I look at it, I wouldn't think it was doing any major harm to anybody.
What would you say to a person who would go, I feel like historically the church has done harm, therefore I don't want the advancement of religion to be considered by our government as a charitable purpose?
I would get them to actually question and look at, you know, what harm has the church done?
I guess like homophobia and like systemic like misogyny, for example. And if you're like a queer person, you might feel like the church is not like a safe place for you to
access assistance.
Yeah, it is a concern if people feel that they can't approach the church, but I think that it's a shame if people then just write off all churches, because I think in general churches are still doing good in society today and will continue to do good in society.
I just think it's fucked. I know that's not a particularly articulate argument, but it just bothers me that there's anything that the government does that endorses them.
I would see churches as net positive, though.
Would you?
I would, yeah.
Here's a crazy thing.
Go on, please.
The church helped my parents pay the deposit for their house. Like, the members of the church pitched in and helped them.
Oh my God.
Isn't that amazing?
That is incredible.
Yeah.
When my house burnt down, accidental, I
Cover your tracks.
I was a baby, but my siblings used to tell me that I had crawled and moved a mirror that reflected the sun onto the electrical socket that sparked a fire. And for years, I believed. The church helped us with clothes and shit like that, and rallied around my family to give them housing and all of that shit. You know, which I'm grateful to them for.
I guess I just don't see it as black and white.
Yeah, I just didn't see you coming in as the defender of...
You booked me today being like, he's gonna rail against the church.
And now here you are, sucking at the teat of it.
Everyone watching this should actually join Destiny's church.
Would you like some Weet-Bix? Charity? Weet-Bix? It's free? Yeah, go on. It's for you. Do you guys like some Weet-Bix? Charity? No? Wow. Oh, maybe they didn't realise it was free. Weet-Bix for charity, sir. Yeah, cheers. Would you like some Weet-Bix? Oh, you're welcome. God bless. This does feel good, actually.
Hey, thank you so much. Do you mind if I actually have a go on those drums?
Sure.
She's got bad news.